Hey, I'm back. This is Chandler for Melder Production, and today I thought I'd do a walkthrough of a song I did. And I put this up on my YouTube so you can check that out if you haven't heard it. But basically I wanted to do this song to demonstrate some of the things I've been showing you over the last month or so. So let's get into it. So I used MDrummer for this, and I found this was really easy. So you see here I have the different parts labeled like intro, main, main 2, ending, etc. And by using MDrummer, this made my life a lot easier because I didn't have to write a million MIDI parts. So if you look at the MIDI here, you can see I just have a few notes scattered through here, and it'll play these patterns and it'll do different variations and things for me, which saved me lots of time. Instead of spending hours making drum parts, I could actually finish the drum parts in, I want to say, about 30 minutes or so. It didn't take long at all, and that's just from nothing to having everything done. And so I'll show you what I did in MDrummer. So if we open it up here, one of the things I used was the rhythm editor. So normally I'd probably use the rhythm generator, but in this case I had lots of varying patterns and I didn't need that many of them. So you see, I'm not even using all the keys. All the green ones are the ones I use, so it's very few actually. So I had this intro, and it's just one of the reverses I showed before. If I play it briefly like this, you can hear it. So it's just a reverse sound. So you hear it, that plays at the very beginning, and then I go straight into this first beat here. It's fairly simple. It's a 2-bar pattern, but it's just a very quick hit. So that didn't take much time to come up with, but one of the things I should probably talk about here is the use of the inaccuracy and the deflection. So the inaccuracy will vary the time, so that means I can play this over and over again, and every single time it'll sound just slightly different because the time will be shifted on when it hits. It won't hit on the downbeat at the exact same time, so it won't sound quite so mechanical. So I use that for this one, and the effect, which is kind of like the low hit, and the floor tom. And the deflection does the same thing, except instead of varying the instead of varying the time, it varies the velocity, so it'll be hit a little bit harder or less hard each time. So that's one of the things I used for this. This is the main beat here. What I did with this is I basically wanted to take kind of a backbeat pattern like you hear in rock or something, and then instead of using cymbals, I used tom drums. I used this high tom 3. And what I did with this, actually I'll let you hear the tom 3 just by itself. I'll solo the track. If you right click, you can do this. And you see okay, it's soloed, and here's what it sounds like. So this is basically a Euclidean drum pattern. Instead of doing it by having it playing on beats and off beats, I had hard hits and softer hits. So if you look at the velocity, you can see what I did there. So it's a pattern of 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3, 1 2 3, 1 2. So I forgot what exact rhythm that is, but it is a Euclidean drum pattern. Let me see if I can make this a little bit more clear. But that's basically what I did for that. The tom drum is the same thing, except instead of using a 16th note pattern like I did for tom 3, I used an 8th note pattern. So the tom drum sounds like this. And I wanted to do that because that kind of gives it an ethnic feel, I guess. And then on top of that, I have this, which is the snare drum and the bass drum. So if I try to have the wrong one solo this track, I'll let you just hear the whole thing together. What am I doing? Unmute all tracks. Here we go. So you can hear it all together like this. So there you go. If you want to hear more about this type of rhythmic writing for drums and percussion, let me know, and I might do another video on Euclidean rhythms and how to use them in MDrummer. I've been planning to do that, but let me know if you're interested in that. Anyways, moving on, I have a few other things. Not interesting. That's the end part. You see that's fairly simple. And then here is just a basic build-up. So I'll let you hear this. So I just have the drums increasing in velocity here. So that's one of the good things about MDrummer. With this, you can easily just click here and drag it and change the velocity. So if you want to ramp up like this, it's easy enough to make. And then I have the scratch too, which is just a reverse sound. Everything else is easy. So this one is just a simple like drum roll, which is also easy to do. I just did the same velocity trick as before. And then I messed with the deflection and the offset, or sorry, the inaccuracy, just to give it a little bit of variation. So it sounds like this. So by doing that, it just doesn't sound like a robot playing. It sounds like, oh, it could actually be like a group of like 5 or 6 people playing. The other parts are fairly simple, not anything interesting. And the outro is just a big hit. And I use the offset also because this will offset the time so it doesn't sound like just one drum being hit at the same time. By offsetting them, you can get a little bit of a variation so it sounds like maybe 3 or 4 people playing. So I'll let you hear this. That huge hit. Okay, so that's it for the rhythm editor. That's what I did here. There's all sorts of things you could do with this, but for a song like this where there's not so many different patterns, I prefer just use the rhythmic editor and enter everything myself. It only takes a short amount of time, and by using the inaccuracy and the deflection, you can get lots of different slight variations, so I don't have to go through every single bar and add, velocity or, tweak the time placements individually. So it saved me lots of time. Next thing I'll talk about is the drum editor. So I have lots of drums. These are all things I did over the last month or so. So you can see these in here. In here, you see I have different outs, and you're wondering like, okay, how do I send these out to different outputs? So if you go into the mixer here, you see the channels. So just send these out here however you like. One is going to my kick drum. Let me see if I can demonstrate that like this. Kick drum. My snare should be 2, low toms 3, high toms 4, etc. So you can send those out however you want, and I believe you can actually save this, so if that's what you want to do, you can do that. Other things here are the effects. So for each of those, like one is my kick drum, I put Ambassador on there, and what that does is it just gives me a little bit more bass to my sound. So if I solo the kick like this, and I'll put it here, so you can hear what I did with this. Open it up, and if I play it, so you can hear that bass, but if I turn it off, it sounds like this. You can hear a lot of that bass just went away whenever I did that. And I can do that with any other ones. You see I did different things with this one. This is the snare, I believe. I have a compressor. I have also saturator on there just to give it a little bit more pop. On the toms, I'm also cutting a little bit of lows. I'm doing some compression and saturation. And the high toms, I do the same thing. So you can do all that type of stuff with there. And one last thing, the drum set editor. You're probably wondering, okay, you had all these and I showed you how to make these separately, but how did I put them together? So what you can do is, let's see if I erase all these. So everything else I showed you how to make except for the snare drum and the tom drums. So I had to make the tom drums tom drum 3, but I made that separately, but I used the same method I used to make the floor toms. So once you do that and you save them separately, all you have to do is hit load and join like this, and I can just import them like this. See, it's not erasing my snare drum, it's just adding to it. And then I can do low toms 1, add that, risers, etc. until you have everything you want. And by saving these in different groups like components like this, you can make your own drum sets. And then if I thought, oh, this is great, all I have to do is click save as, and I can save it as a complete drum set by itself. by doing things this way, you can create your own drum sets, and by saving them as different components, you can actually like make your own drum sets and tailor it to your specific composition, so you don't really have to use the same one over and over again. So you can kind of mix and match. So for me, that's a really good thing about MDrummer, besides the fact that it has lots of samples now. So I hope this gave you an idea of how I did things in this song, and I hope it gave you some ideas on things you can do yourself. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Make sure you check out all the other plugins at melderproduction.com. Give me a thumbs up, and until next time, see you.